10 years from now, you're going to open up a gift. And that gift is the life that you have created based on the compounding effects of our health, our finances, and our relationships. Let's make sure that that gift is something that we get excited about opening. Let's talk about it. All right, grab your favorite mug. It's time for Coffee with Your Retirement Coach. Welcome back to Coffee with Your Retirement Coach. Behind the clipboard with me today, Randy Yeomans. Randy.
How are you doing, Aaron?
Really excited about this topic.
I am too.
The reality for all of us is 10 years is coming, whether we like it or not, whether we plan for it or not.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're giving ourselves.
Yes.
And is it a gift or is it a remorse?
Yeah.
And the reality of it is we want to take time, take stock today to think, and I want to push deeper with that. And what would be the gift that you would want to receive from yourself? That would be our question for our audience is, what should that life look like for you to be happy with the gift that you've given yourself? And there's a lot of things that we've factored in here into that life. I mean, it's finances, it's relationships, it's your health. How are we enjoying life? And the reality of it is comprised of a million different decisions, actions, and attitudes that we start with today.
Compounded.
And it is those compounded effects.
Aaron, I think you're giving yourself a gift anyway. Yeah. I mean, in 10 years, if we're here 10 years from today, you'll be opening a gift. And that gift is going to be the result of decisions that we're making today, intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah.
I love the way goal setting changes lives. And people, it's weird. Sometimes people think that's all crazy. But the reality is, if you do any study at all, neuroscience says that your subconscious mind and your mind are two different things. And what you believe and what you see and what you seek, that's how your life comes out. Yeah. And it's really not always, not 100%, but definitely it sets the direction. You had an interesting thought in your childhood that you've been wanting to share.
As a kid,
I
did something.
This is the episode.
The team had no idea what this was. I participated in orienteering.
Yeah, you made that up.
I was a very popular kid.
You made that up completely.
No, it's not made up. It's a really cool activity where you're basically presented with a compass and a map. And you're trying to get to different places where there's either a flag, sometimes it's a poker chip, and you're trying to find these treasures.
You're walking around your house?
No, you're out, you're in the woods, you're getting out in nature. See, that's why I thought you would be excited about this activity. The problem is when they teach you how to do this, you got to learn how to read the compass.
What's it called?
It's called orienteering.
Okay, orienteering. Okay.
You have to learn how to use a compass, right? That's the equipment. But the first piece of equipment is you, right?
All right.
And the reality is I've got two legs, correct?
I'm going for it.
One of those legs is dominant.
Yeah.
If I'm going to kick a ball, if I'm going to lead, I typically go with my right side of my body, right hand, right foot. Okay. What they taught me.
So you're not goofy-footed.
I'm not goofy-footed.
Okay.
What they taught me when we were learning how to do this sport.
Okay, I'll go with it. It's a sport. It's definitely a sport.
Is left unchecked without having a good point of reference. My
True north,
dominant foot will start taking longer strides.
Okay.
And it will take me off of a straight line. And the longer that goes unchecked, the more I will veer off course. And one of the first things that we want to talk about is that drift,
it's
wandering,
unconscious too, right?
Yes.
But the thing that's cool about that story is if you know that, then you can take action, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because the reality of it is, if you stopped me miles down the road, you said, "What have you been doing?" I've been walking in a straight line.
You're probably back in the same spot if that's.
Eventually, if you had enough space, you go a big old circle. Yeah. Right. No, it's true.
Let's get into it.
Yeah. Now, Randy, when we're talking about things like shifting, drifting into the future, if we're going to work like with what we're talking about, then it has to be by design.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what it's like to live a life by design. And then again, you were mentioning compounding. For us in the world of financing, we're very familiar with compounding interest.
Right.
And I want to talk to you about how that is significant to us, but how we fail to apply that to other areas of our learning.
I think life compounds positively, negatively.
Yeah.
You're moving. So if you have a goal, like you were talking about, maybe your true north or the direction you're trying to go, you've got an idea out there that you're trying to, or an ideal that you're trying to reach to. But first of all, by examining it and setting it. Some people make no goals. They have no objective. They have no idea. It's really fuzzy and not well designed. So you think about the compounding idea. I remember years ago, I heard about the rule of 72. And the basic and generic version of that is you take any rate of return and you divide it into 72. It tells you how long it takes for something to double. Or it's like, for example, 6 goes into 72 12 times. It'd take 12 years for your money to double. Now, this is generic, not investment advice. It's just to give you the concept of it. So if we wanted a life, a better life, a life that would be a gift 10 years from now to ourselves, our current self gifting our future self a better life, then think about that in the way of compounding return. So if in 10 years I wanted my life to be twice as good as it is today, I'd have to get like 7.2%. So if you looked at that from an investment standpoint, that's a healthy return.
Yes.
Maybe not too unrealistic, but that would mean if I had $500,000 today and I earned 7.2%, I would have roughly $1 million. Or if I had 3 million and I earned 7.2%, not considering, any taxation or anything like that, my money would double. That 3 million become 6 million. So life compounds like that.
But that's a positive effect, and that's planting in something, an asset, situation. Don't you feel like these rules probably work their way out in negative results as well?
Absolutely.
And why do we not give the same kind of consideration to that?
The same thing that's fighting against that is inflation. So inflation is making every dollar that you own next year worth a little bit less. So if you think about the decisions you're making, and I have this, diagram, this Venn diagram that I operate my life under, and it's my relationship life, my health and wellness life, and my economic life. So I think like if I've got a great health and great relationships, I got no money, I can't do anything with everybody. If I've got a lot of money and I've got great health but no friends, I've got nobody to do it with.
That's true.
So really they're really important, and I think we've got to pay attention to all of them. So I think most people have an Achilles heel. It could be their health, could be relationships, could be economics. And what we need to do is really seek guidance in those areas. And an expression, Serrano Kelly, a coach I worked with one time, he said, if you pay attention to a thing, you change a thing. And I have found that to be true. What's cool about it, and this is really where some people are going to drop off because they're not going to be willing to trust me in this. And that is that, first of all, when you set goals and objectives, wanting to give yourself this fantastic gift 10 years from today, when you do that, your subconscious mind begins to work on it. So you will start to see things. As a matter of fact, those that study this.
Listen, we're going to have to introduce that other glossary word. We had orienteering to begin with. Please, you got to start talking to us about that reticular activator.
Yeah, so that's such a weird thing, and a lot of people joke about it when they hear me talk about it. But you have a radar, a GPS, something in your subconscious and conscious mind that work together. And basically, it's like this: if I set myself a goal or an objective, like I write it down and I think about it, maybe I affirm some things about myself, that I make smart, timely decisions, and that I'm blessed and highly favored. Whatever you want to do, when I start to speak that way and I start to think that way, my subconscious mind starts to work on it. Now that's fuzzy and weird, so I'm going to tell you how it actually works. Because it really is, again, I'm a Christian. I make no bones about it. I'm no theologian, but I like to think in lines of, can I line up scripture and wisdom, ancient wisdom, into what I'm thinking? So in the Bible, it talks about asking. And, if you ask, you shall have. If you seek, you shall find. If you knock, it'll be open unto you. And so this idea of sometimes people don't have a better life because they never ask. They don't seek. Now the good news is for those of you who are going to really try and take advantage of this, the world is kind of your oyster. Because I promise you the majority of the people in our audience are going to poo-poo on this, and they're not going to take advantage of it. But the reality is, if you start to concentrate on something, so you want greater health, then things are going to show up in your life that are going to give you evidence. As a matter of fact, Google's probably going to put it in your email. But the idea would be this: when I seek something, and one of the things that I've noticed and I've used before is if somebody's car's worn out, they're on kind of their last leg with a vehicle, and they decide, I'm going to start searching for a vehicle, right? So I decide I want, a hybrid, or I want, a Ford F-150 or whatever it might be.
I see that car everywhere.
Everywhere you go.
The badges are on the billboards.
Right,
I'm hyper aware
They're
of
everywhere.
it.
Everybody but you has one of those cars.
Right.
And I've used this expression too. So if a lady decides she wants to have a child, she'll start to notice that everybody seems to be pregnant but her. So the way this works is if you aren't thinking that way, that Ford truck or whatever it might be, you never see them.
Yeah.
They're not there. But if you just state that you want something, not some kind of weird thing, just the way your radar is, then you will start to seek it. And people who seek greater health and wellness, they're going to see evidence of things that they can do, and they're going to be attracted to that.
That's good.
Relationships are the same way, and investing is the same way.
Now, in that, have you ever seen somebody subconsciously sabotage themselves? Like what we were talking about is more in the positive, but
yeah, I do think that we send a message to ourselves. In other words, some people have a very low self-esteem. Sometimes it's just in them that way. Sometimes it's been brought in by the family dynamics they had, a work environment, things like that.
Yeah.
And so they'll see evidence of that. They'll see evidence of what it is that they're looking for.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is if you want to give yourself this great gift, then you need to start asking yourself, what is that you want? And then you should work on it, but your subconscious mind will begin to work on it automatically.
Gotcha. We were talking about the compounding effects of those three different lenses. Talk to us at the first one, relationships.
Yeah.
Talk about how that is an area of need for attention.
So again, I'm just going to give you my perspective. I'm not asking anybody to follow my perspective, but I believe if I want a great life, then I should love God with all my heart. I should love my neighbor as myself, So one of the things is I've got to love myself. So some people have a real problem with their relationship because they don't like themselves. They don't like who they are. They don't like, some certain things about themselves.
Right.
But the other part of that would be if I want to have friends and community. By the way, if you want to be healthy in 10 years from now, you're going to have to be involved in community. There are not a lot of really happy hermits. You know what I mean? There could be some, not a lot. You're not going to notice them because they're hermits.
Yeah.
But one of the things we're going to find out is community is really important. So if you want to do community, if you want to have great relationships, then take some classes. Be a friend. And instead of thinking or saying to somebody, if you need anything, let me know.
Yeah.
Why don't they need something? Why not do something for them? Yeah. I think you're really great at that. You've done that with me a lot. I like certain things, and the next thing you know, something will be on my desk that references that. I mean, that's your nature.
Yeah.
I think you had good parenting.
No, I did. I think so. I don't want to brag on them in a forum that they'll hear about it.
No, I don't want to. I know them. I don't want them to hear it.
And we talk about the Venn diagram all the time, and you've already kind of started touching on that overlap. And the reality is the relationships can lead into our mental health, physical health through community. Absolutely. But the reality is there's that, the body is a temple. We could be a beast in 10 years, or we could be an atrophied mess.
I think, it's a temple, not a woodshed. So we got to treat it like a temple.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that comes to mind to me is maybe you don't really know what to do. Yeah. So hire a coach that specializes in health and wellness. Why would you not do that?
Yeah.
Like what would you look back and say, well, I really regret that I got myself in better shape, had a better diet, and stuff like that. Or will you look back and use the model that most of us live in today, this American model where we wait till we've got disease and sickness and illness, and then we try to fix the damage instead of doing the maintenance to be better. So the whole mentality of that is that if I want to give myself a better life, nature is working against that when it comes to my physical life. Yeah. So there is a natural pull of declining muscle strength, bone density, all these kind of things that compound. So I've got to be aggressively proactive in my health and wellness. And that means I need to be educated about it. Yeah. Maybe I need to take classes. Maybe I need to hire a coach. But don't do this. Don't expect your life to be better in 10 years physically if you aren't doing anything that's changing the trajectory. Yeah. Your dominant foot's going to take you somewhere. How do you like that? I use that.
My favorite, I love it. love it. I love it. My favorite Randyism that this reminds me of is, oh, my back's killing me. Oh, there's this going on in my body, stomach. Well, my body's shouting. And it's like, well, it didn't just start today.
Right.
Now, it was a whisper at one time.
Yeah.
And I love that. And kind of talk about what your thinking is behind that.
You know, another coach that I had, and beware of the coach that doesn't have a coach.
Right.
That's a Randyism.
That is a Randy.
So I believe that we need mentors.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of the mentors in our life, probably the most powerful mentor that you can have, and you can have them today, is setting a goal.
Yeah.
Because what happens is I believe that your life basically is your education. Now, everything that you're going through is educating you. And when you set a goal, which is like ask, knock, seek, then what happens is you begin to work on that aspect of your life. So your goals become your educator. Yeah. So what happens is if I want a better, healthier life or better relationships, then when I start to make that an objective, then I will begin to work on those things. Again, consciously or subconsciously, they're going to be a part and ingrained in my life. And I am changing that dominant foot that might be leading to peril and less quality life. And I'm redirecting because now I have something I can point to and I can go. And it is strangely magical. The way this works. But I have done journaling for years, and I set goals for myself in my life that I'd long forgot about. But when I went back through those journals, I found out I blew those goals away. Not because there's anything special about me. Yeah. That isn't the thing at all. It isn't that. It's that I took the time to write it down and to pay attention to it.
Right.
So I think it's a miracle the way some of this stuff works, but it works both ways, to your point. Yeah. If I have a really bad outlook, like if I say to my friends and my family and myself, more importantly, if I say nobody in my family, is healthy by the time they're 70, or everybody in my family that's male has died by the time they're 80, or I start speaking that stuff into my life, I start believing that, then think about what I don't do. Well, if I'm planning on dying in 5 years or 20 years, whatever it might be, then I'm not doing any of the things that could prevent that because I don't anticipate it. Yeah. But if I say, you know what, I'm not going to have that kind of life. I'm changing that path. Absolutely. It's amazing how that changes.
Yeah. Well, and that's a daily deposit for to be able to have those kind of withdrawals in your health later. And speaking in that way, and I know a lot of people that are paying attention to this, the financial component is what that's the lens they're most interested in. Gosh, yeah. And what I love is there's things about finance that buys you more things beyond money, and that breaks people's brains. So
so one of the things that, I've been working for a long time, and I've eaten my own cooking when it comes to most of this. I'm not perfect by any means, and my wife will probably be watching this, so she'll get me a big amen on that. But here's a part of that. To be at a place in life, this is really powerful, where you can do certain things, like you have the means to do things, but you choose not to do them because you don't care what the Joneses are doing.
Oh man.
Like if you
did a whole episode on that.
Oh yeah. I mean, so that's one part of it. But then when you think about compounding return, we happen to be a business that focuses on investment management, tax planning, and estate planning. So think about the person who doesn't understand this or doesn't pay attention to it. They've saved really well. They've got great rates of return. Their estate plan is a failure, and they give half the money to the government.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big fail. That doesn't have to occur, but you've got to have a coach that can guide you through that. Somebody who's has expertise in that area. And then the other one would be, you think about compounding return. We used an example of the rule of 72. We said, if you wanted your money to double in 10 years, you need about a 7.2% return. Yep. Again, this is conceptual. Nobody's making any investment recommendations today. Right. But let's say that a third of that 7.2% went to taxes. Yeah. Well, then you aren't going to compound in 10 years. Yeah. So that's an incremental change, getting a tax plan put together instead of just paying your taxes as you go and being oblivious to it. Yeah. Because, Aaron, in 1 year, that tax consequence isn't much. But that compound return between, a 4.5% return and a 7.5% return, that's dramatically different. Right. So these little things matter. And again, if you already are a master of your health and wellness, then you don't need a coach, perhaps. Maybe you just need the goal and objective. But if you don't, you should have a coach. If your relationships stink, it wouldn't hurt sometimes to get some counseling or to try to recognize what are you doing to sabotage relationships. And one of them is be the kind of person that you would want to be, right? That you would want to be around. Be to other people that person that you would want to be. And when it comes to your in economic life, get a handle on that. Very few people have the expertise to understand the complexities between tax planning, estate planning, and investment management. If that's not you, hire that out. That's what I do for a living. That's what you do for a living.
That's right.
So we obviously have a self-interest in promoting that, but it's true in all areas of our life.
And the reality is what we always hammer on. It's the fact that money can't buy you happiness.
No.
But it can provide you with options.
Right.
Which can increase the quality of your life.
You could get a nice dinner with a lovely lady.
Absolutely can. Because think about it. If you've got these great relationships, you want to be able to enjoy life with them.
Well, you know what? I mean, honestly, I think people, we've heard this hundreds of times, I'm sure, but people spend time, serious time, planning and organizing a vacation. And I look out 10 years. What's the gift I want to give myself 10 years? Well, it's made up of a couple of components. But one, I want to be very healthy. I want to be healthy like I am today, to be able to do the things I care about, impact the people that I love, and be a part of the community. And one of those things is be a lifetime learner. Like I think we've got to invest in people. And there's a couple of organizations that I'm passionate about that are doing miraculous works around the globe and in our community. I can't do all those things, but I can support those organizations. So I want to have the means physically if they need help. I want to be able to help. I have an expression I use frequently, and it's called a change of life that happened to me in the early 2000s. And it was where I went from a philosophy of, instead of being, well, when I'm old, I'll need help, to when I'm old, I can help. When I've got the means, I've got the financial means, I've got the physical strength, I've got the relationships, that I can be a help in the community. And by the way, that's a gift that gives a lot, because one of the things that gives is how you feel about yourself, that you're in a spot by God's grace and some work that you did in the field, so that you can have that experience in life. Today, many people are already having that, but I'm telling you, life decays, life gets harder. So you've got to make some changes. You got to correct that dominant foot.
There's no excuse when it comes to knowledge consumption these days either. You can't say, oh, I'm not much of a reader. I mean, between podcasts like this, audio books, video presentations, still, for me, there's nothing like holding a book in my hand.
Right. Well,
But however you prefer it, it's out there.
I think of a early mentor I had, a guy named Jim Rohn, who's not with us, but he was the mentor to Tony Robbins. And I read a lot of his stuff, and he really impacted my thinking in so many areas of life. But one of the things, he encouraged you to be a reader. And I remember sharing this with my kids. And you think about the fact that when most people graduate college or sometimes high school, they never read another book in their life. And I'm an avid reader, as you know. I just love to consume good books, and I love the curiosity and the unbelievable things that books bring us. And I'm an Audible book reader. I retain a lot more, and I use my free time to digest good books. But think about the fact that if you were a young person today and you're reading a book a week, you're reading 52 books a year, and your friend's doing none or doing 2. Or you do a book a month. In a year, you've got 12. In 10 years, you've got 120 books under your belt. In 10 years from now, somebody else has got none. So that you can't beat that compounding. You exercise every day or every other day, and your friend doesn't. There's going to be an impact on that. You're doing a generous gift to community and organizations and people that you care about. You're doing it every day, and you're sometime in need. What do you think your relationships are going to be like with these people that you've invested in all these years? And you don't do it for that. The reality is you plant in one season and you reap in another season. So you should be planting today, physically, relationship, economically, for that compounding effect, because you will reap a reward either way.
Yeah.
Good decisions or bad.
Yeah, yeah. It's really it's taking that time investment every single day. One of the things, I had a buddy of mine, we were talking recently. Tiffany and I are going to celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
In May. And thank you.
Bless her heart.
It's more her that, yeah. Let's be real honest. But there are things in the way that we interact with one another. They're like, oh well, y'all are just, and we're like, well, no.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what would you attribute it to? It's like, well, we read books and we went to marriage conferences, and
So it wasn't completely easy.
No, absolutely. And we did those things early on. We didn't wait until people. I would love it. I would talk to somebody and say, well, Tiffany and I are going to a marriage conference. Oh, is it trouble at home? Is it that? Yeah, yeah. And it's like, no, and that's kind of what we're talking about. You will be better equipped for future situations. We talk all the time about someone who's more knowledgeable. It's harder to fool them.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, think about the conversations you can have with somebody. If you have read a diverse group of books over the last 10 years and you've got, 50 or 200 books under your belt, you can have a conversation with almost anybody.
Yes.
I do think that that's powerful, but I teach a lot of classes on this, new retirement, this love your retirement philosophy of mine. And it's basically, why not have the best life you can have?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen by accident. And what I've noticed, which is really cool, I have certain people who come to almost every class. And they're very knowledgeable and they're very successful.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's like you go to church every Sunday, right? You're getting that message all the time. You don't have to agree with everything that comes down there. I have had this philosophy of I believe in continuing education. I believe in being curious. I believe in continuing to investigate. But sometimes I'll attend something and I'll go, that was really bad. Like somebody might be doing with this podcast today. But they might go, if I see something that was really bad, you know what I could pick up from that?
Yeah.
Don't do what that guy did or that gal did.
Right.
If that person isn't communicating effectively to their audience, or they're boring, or they don't know when to pause, or whatever it might be, the skill, my responsibility is to get something out of that.
Yeah.
It's not their responsibility to give it to me. My responsibility is to get something out of that.
Yeah.
So that shift in mindset, and the biggest one I want people to leave today with, is their expectation. You will be giving yourself a gift in 10 years.
Yeah.
You will be giving yourself a gift, and it will be a gift of, congratulations, a gift of thankfulness and gratitude, or it'll be
burden and lack.
It will be a different kind. It will be, man, I wish I would have.
Yeah.
And that plays into a lot of things. Like, let's create economic freedom. And by the way, the other thing about what we're sharing today, it is so powerful. How many of us have children or grandchildren that need to understand these principles? And we send them to the best schools. We try to get them a great education.
Yep.
We try to help them stay out of debt and stuff. But then we don't teach them about life.
Yeah.
We don't teach them that, that life compounds. It compounds regardless.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everybody today to not think this is hokey, which it can to some people. This is going to mess with some really intelligent people.
Yeah.
Because this is too hokey for them.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you, I know a lot of successful people. And I've been privileged to work with a lot of successful people. The things we're talking about are happening in their lives, whether they're aware of it or not.
Yeah.
And part of it is because they set high expectations for themselves. Some of it even to a detriment. They've given up things, but that balance, I want to have great relationships, and I want to be a part of the community and be a participant and be a help, be a blessing.
Yeah.
I want to be a funnel, not a bucket. That's a mentality I want to have in the people and the things I care about. Economically, I want to be I can help. I could do that. I could do it. And I have some cool things happening where a small amount of investment from me was a massive amount of investment to an organization in a third world country that can't do anything, that doesn't have water or a home to live in or something like that. That compounding effect of being a good steward. And by the way, I'm not saying that in like a braggadocious way. I'm saying the feeling I get that little old me who gave this small sacrifice had that big impact there. That's
Sure.
phenomenal.
Sure.
And so the economic aspect, being a good steward of our finances, getting good guidance and coach to maximize that, not to hoard it,
Yeah.
but to be a good steward, to mend the field, to understand the difference of diversification of crops and taxes and doing all of those necessary things so that we aren't, being called, like the Bible calls some people, a sluggard.
Yeah.
That word,
That's a rough
that's
one.
a rough
That's
word,
a rough
man.
one.
I don't want to be a sluggard in
That's the
any area
truth.
of my life.
That's the truth. Here's what we're saying. With this gift, keep the receipts. Start today. Now, we're not saying go on your phone and set a reminder 10 years from now to check back and see, well, what's the gift and how did it do? Let's incrementally check back and look in these 3 areas. What kind of deposits are we making? What are we doing to make sure that we can see that compounding growth? How are we nurturing those things? And how are we developing ourselves to better steward those things along the journey? There is 10 years coming. What it looks like at the end, the gift that we unwrapped, depends on the compounding life that we live up through. Randy, thank you so much for sharing this, for being transparent with us, because there's parts of this where you have to be warts and all. This is the reality of it. If you've got a question for Randy, if you'd like to ask something specifically about the life compounded.
Not my warts.
Not the warts, no. Yeah, that's WebMD. That's something completely different. Email us at connect@yourretirementcoach.com. Really should get that checked out. Thank you so much for being here with us. If there's someone that you know needs to hear this message, whether it's a congratulatory thing to encourage them, and maybe it's the next 5 years of their 10-year journey, or for someone that it's time to get up and see. Jim Rome was the one that says, I can't change my life in a night, but I can make some small changes to my attitudes every day.
Well, he said, you don't like where you live?
Yeah.
Move. You're not a tree.
Yeah.
So he's got some great
just in your face stuff. So if you've got some things like that there's friends of yours that need it, share this podcast. We encourage you, put it in a text, fire it over to that person that it needs to be their day to step up and begin to make those incremental changes. They're going to
I have one other thing.
Yeah.
Aaron, are you excited you got your story in there?
I did.
About your dominant foot?
And if you have ever participated in orienteering, and I'm not talking about geocaching where you've got the technology. I'm talking about out there, measured your. I want to hear from you. Connect@yourretirementcoach.com. Aaron, you are not the only one, and I might be the only one. There was a few of us out there in that field that day, so there's at least 5 or 6.
That was a weird picture.
It's a good group of guys. We grow up to be healthy, well-adjusted men. Anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us, and thank you for staying coachable. We hope you enjoyed today's show, but you may have questions for our coaches, and they can be emailed at connect@yourretirementcoach.com. If you know someone that needs to hear this episode, we encourage you to share it. As a reminder, the content of this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as advice. On behalf of our coaches, we want to thank you for listening and for being coachable.
Investment advice offered through Merit Financial Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor.